Please join us for an hour of Flashback Sports.
Where we look back to the sports of the 70s through today and relive the good,
the bad.
You can't be serious, man. You cannot be serious!
the ugly,
The really ugly.
the cool,
The Joe Cool.
the characters,
The many, many what were they thinking moments.
and what made the 70s the 70s.
The events.
Down goes Frazier!
The rivalries.
Wanting to go at each other now, huh?
And of course, the fights.
Just when you thought it was safe, Jimmy Connors comes up with his second big return of the game. Just punches it down the line, anticipated the wide serve. Break point.
Hey, welcome to Flashback Sports with Gil and Dave at Jimmy Connors. We wanted to talk a little about the U.S. Open. Dave has a connection to that because he was at some of those matches in '91. But before we get into the, fall's coming. We got a lot to talk about: football, baseball playoffs, and so forth. But a couple of birthdays we had. We missed Big Caw's birthday a couple of weeks ago. So happy birthday, Big Caw! 30, as Jack Benny said, 39. Happy
39 and climbing.
A birthday to Sue Marchetta, a good friend of the family, and hope Jimmy's doing a lot better. So I hope, say hello, Jimmy, and I hope you're doing well. My brother Todd's birthday, and my nephew Matthew, who maybe we can explain how the playoffs work later on. Him and my son John can explain it. But Dave, in passing yesterday, it was one of I grew up a Yankee fan. You did too, but Ed Kranepool was a signature. A guy that started in '62. Went to 79. He was on the Miracle Mets. So he passed away. So what I'll do, can we, Jack, play video 2, please?
Home run that puts the Mets out in front 5-0.
Catcher, Gary Willie, number
15. Dave, what's funny about that video is if you look at the crowd, I never saw everyone with certain, suits and ties and hats, and everyone dressed like they were going for, Easter, Sunday, Easter, mass and everything. And things have changed now. People walk into games and they're wearing like robes, and they're wearing the flip flops and sandals. They're walking in like they just walk out of bed. But and Kranepool, to me, I mean, like I said, I grew up a Yankee fan, but he was symbolic of the Mets at that time. Even at the end of his career, he was a good pinch hitter, always a good hitter and good fielder. He was on the '69 team, the '73 team, and what's your recollection? I think you said your mom was a big Mets fan, so.
Oh yeah, huge. My parents are big Met fans. Kranepool. Kranepool had, the guy had a nice career, 18 years with the Mets. If you're a younger Met fan now, let's say 40 or younger, you might not even know who he is. I mean, you might see him in the record books, but he was kind of a Mr. Met for a lot of years. He still holds the record for most games played. He's in the top 5 in almost everything, certainly in the top 10, and just by games played, at bats, hits, home runs, RBIs. So he had one of those guys. It was the longevity. Always, kind of always around. 18 years, an original Met, which I think gives him a little bit more. A lot of people appreciate the original Mets. What's sad, particularly this year, is that we're just losing so many Mets from that 69 team. It's almost like last year with the Islanders, or the year before. I think it was last year. So between Seaver and Grody and Cranepool and Harrelson, Willie Mays was it this year too. He wasn't 69, but he was 73. Yeah, it's sad to see these guys go because we grew up watching them. And then Cranepool was he's one of those guys, steady Eddie. I think that's pretty called him most of the time. Great pinch hitter. I think he still holds some records pinch hitting wise. Maybe a lifetime average. I think he hit 500 one year. He was really one of the early guys. Manny Mota, guys like that, they became professional pinch hitters, which most people consider.
Brown. Remember that
Gates Brown? Yeah, exactly. So Dodgers always had a few of those guys. Gates Brown with Detroit. Yeah. So it's too bad he had a heck of a career. I actually thought he was old. He was only 79, which guys like us now think that's very young, because he was around so many years, right? I mean, I think he played 60 something. He played 62 years ago. He came up as an 18-year-old kid for the Mets in the 62 season.
Right,
a handful of games.
And Dave, he was a product. He was from the Bronx, James.
Bronx
High School, so he's a Bronx kid, local
Bronx
kid.
Dude.
And listen, that was the video. He hit a home run in the World Series. I think he was a one-time All-Star, but he was, like you said, Mr. Met. And then later on, like in the mid '80s, it became like Rusty Staub was like that pinch hitter and stuff, like a Mr. Met. But Cranepool was just like he went the extended from when they started to to the end of the Joan Payson era. Then when Doubleday bought the team, I think that's when his era also. I think
he played it.
I think Cranepool tried to buy the team at one time. That was
really
a group of people. Yeah, I mean, I met him once. Very nice guy. I didn't really have any inkling not to like him, even as a Yankee fan. I just like him. He was a nice, smooth lefty, first baseman, and had a nice swing. You know what I mean? Like you said, he was a good pinch hitter, and like I said, he embodied the Mets. I mean, he was there. I mean, how many guys could play 18 years on one team?
Yeah,
I mean,
he had a nice early career. He had some nice, like I said, he made an all-star team. Yeah, I think it was it him and Swoboda had the restaurant in Amityville on 110, the dugout.
Mm-hmm.
You remember that? It was definitely Swoboda. Was it Swoboda and Cranepool, or was it Swoboda and Shamsky? I'm trying to remember who that was.
It might have been Shamsky, right? Or maybe Shamsky and I don't know if Cranepool. Well, Cranepool lived on Long Island. I know he lived in the Hamlet. Yeah, he's a Long Island guy, and I know Harrelson. I don't know if that was. Right. It might have been Swoboda and Shamsky.
It was definitely Swoboda. I can't remember. It might have been Shamsky. I have to kind of go back and look at that roster, see who it might have been. But yeah, too bad. And again, too bad that we're seeing a lot of these guys that we grew up with pass. And especially again, I consider 79 young.
Dave, when you see that, like you said, like maybe a few months ago, Kenny Holtzman passed away. It's like, and you see these guys, like you said, 79, Sal Bando. I mean, it's like, these are guys when we were kids, we would get their baseball cards and, being 8, 9, 10 years old, these guys were playing. And then you're like, wow, the mortality and how fast it goes, So it really sometimes shocking to, guys that we grew up with. And then all of a sudden you see them at, I don't know, it's Vita Blue Dew, I think he passed away, right?
Great Vita Blue.
That great place. But they talking about you're more of a tennis fan than I. I mean, I do remember that Connors run in '91. I thought the Borg-McEnroe. I know Borg never won a U.S. Open and McEnroe and stuff. But talk a little bit. I thought there was going to be a really climactic end to the U.S. Open this year, but I think it failed.
Yeah, we were talking about doing some of these segments of the show, which you're obviously doing now. So it was a little bit anticlimactic. It was disappointing Sunday all around, just in terms of the football. And the tennis, in terms of the Americans, had a tremendous run in this tournament. 4 Americans in the semifinals of the men's and the women's was pretty cool. So that made it particularly interesting. I thought it was a fun watch for the 2 weeks. Disappointing ending, mostly just because you're rooting for the Americans to do well, and they actually I thought they played pretty well. They were just overmatched by better players. Sabalenka, just too much power. in her runs against Pagula, the Buffalo Bills. The New Yorker. Everybody's a New Yorker when you're from Buffalo. You're a New Yorker because we're desperate for some New York Bills in New York.
Maybe the best New York football team.
Listen, they're legit New York. These Jersey guys that we follow. They're not, but. Yeah, so it's funny watching that match, and we have to do a show, and maybe that's one of our last shows we do on things you miss in sports. And I miss Jimmy Connors, and I miss the personalities, because you're watching that, and we could show another, matches between. In fact, show this now. Show video number 1, Jack, but just in terms of how the game is played then versus now.
Wow.
It's just, you watch the guys, and not better or worse. I'm not picking at the older players, because again, so much of it is about equipment and how you have to play the game. But they're playing ping pong compared to the way these guys are hitting the ball today. But I miss those personalities or rivalries that because that was just fun to watch, and that's just one point. But and the game's just played at so much speed now, and there's no more real serve and volley. The game's not really played that much at the net. So I miss that. I miss those personalities. One thing that I thought, I hope happens with these new generation of players, that now that, you have the men's, Federer's retired, Nadal's pretty much retired at this point with injuries. Joker is beatable for the first time in years. These are the 3 greatest players of all time, basically exiting in the year 2. So I'm hoping that there's another round of men's rivalries like that. And certainly rivalries that include Americans too. So you saw a couple of Americans, Francis Tiafoe and Taylor Fritz, play great. You hope these guys, the women, was Navarro and Pagula, and you just hope there's some personalities involved at these rivalries. And you want some villains. We don't really have that villain. So it's hard. I'm not a big tennis fan. I'm a U.S. Open, Wimbledon. I watch the majors. I'll watch the finals of a big match. So I'm not a big tennis fan, mostly because I'm at the stage where I need a rivalry. I need somebody to root against, and I think tennis needs that a little bit. The game is phenomenal. The way it's played right now. These guys, how hard they hit, the ground they cover is insane. The shot making is insane. Just like most athletes today, they're better athletes right now, and the equipment is just But the one thing it lacks, I think, is the personalities and the rivalries. And I think one thing that helped with the women is even like Sabalenka. I think the parity, once kind of Serena left the scene a little bit, there's been so much parity that I don't even know. Sometimes I don't even know who the number one. I don't even recognize the name of a top 5 player, just because they kind of seem like they rotate in and out. I'd love to see, 4 or 5, top flight women, just become dominant and become rivals, and we have some rooting interest, especially if there's Americans involved in the equation. But that, and watching the Connors, the Connors, Harhus, and then the McEnroe Borg deal, it just brings back the personalities that were involved in the rivalries. It would be pretty cool.
And Dave, I was like, when I grew up in high school and stuff, when tennis became popular, because of McEnroe and Borg, and McEnroe and Connors, and Borg and Connors, and Elina Stasi, and not Agassi, the other guy that was who was the guy from Vitas Gerulaitis, who was like a Long Island kid, and the U.S. Open is always something different. I mean, you went to a Connors, it's just like a different noise, different amount of people. Even the women, I mean, I always liked like I say, Chris Everett, Tracy Austin. I remember was a kid that did well there, and then you still got Martina and Billie Jean King, and and Monica Seles, and Monica Seles, and the other one. I mean, just Steffi Graf. So when the women had great matches and great rivalries too, but well,
the fact that you can rattle off their names right now, 20, 30 years later, sometimes I don't know if that's going to happen. I mean, certainly Serena, and Venus. There's going to be a few names that kind of come up from this generation. And there'll be a few others, but it just seems like there's been so much parity. For a casual fan like me, I would love to see some dominant players. I'd love to see some rivalries. You can't force personality. You can't force the rivalries that you had back with guys like Neil Nastasi and back at McEnroe. But it was just unique dudes. I mean, they were just kind of, they were out there. And you can't force that stuff. But you hope, I think, for me anyway, to be more involved in tennis, it especially needs to involve some more Americans. So it's good to see 4 out of the 8 semifinalists Americans.
Talking about a guy in this stats, I think I remember one time they almost had it was a fight. The cops got, the police officers came. It was like a whole scene with the umpire. I mean, you remember that as kids, those things. And I remember U.S. Open, I know it used to be, I think, at Forest Hills in the beginning, and then it moved there. But I mean, there's something about, it's about like, I had the fortune. My wife worked for a company, and we got seats one time, and we were sitting next to Tony Bennett, and it was like a scene. It was like I was like at the U.S. Open, and I was like, wow, look at all the people that are around me. This and that. And talk a bit, Dave, about your experience. You went to that. You were at one of Jimmy Connor's when he made that run when he was 39 years old.
I think we talked about one of the shows. Me, Cindy, a couple of my brother-in-laws. We were at, I think Rick and Mark were at the U.S. Open in the first round of that 1991 series, and he beat when Connors beat Patrick McEnroe, coming back from 2 sets down and love 3 in the third set. So he was down, 3-love in the third, lost the first 2 sets, and we were there till 2 in the morning because he came back, and the place was probably half full, maybe less than that by the time it ended because everybody kind of checked out. I don't know. I have no idea why we were still there. I know Cindy and I would no way would be there right now. So
and I always remember those games. I think it was it the U.S. Network? I always remember. I can never find when the
USA Network,
USA Network. And I remember watching that McEnroe. I mean, that Connors Patrick McEnroe, which I think ended probably like 1:30 in the morning, right? It was like one, right?
Yeah,
it was like I remember watching. It was intriguing. Look, he was 39 years old. I mean, he had been up, and I mean, listen, like you said, in the mid 70s, you had everyone knocked each other. Connors, McEnroe, Borg. I mean, Borg won Wimbledon, but he can never win the U.S. Open, right? So I mean, it was always like these intriguing stories, but the rivalries. But like you said, look at the rackets they were using. Look at the speed of I mean, it's almost like I always say, it's like they're playing with like wiffle ball bats. You know what I mean? It's like the speed but they had the skill. You know what? They had the personality. It brought tennis a long way. When McEnroe became in the early 80s, I remember being in Albany, and tennis was very popular. We would play tennis, Dave. On a Saturday, everyone had rackets, and we would play tennis because it got very popular. So,
it was fun. It's a different game, and in some level, people will, it depends on what you like. I mean, there was just a lot of that serve and volley stuff. McEnroe was just a master around the net, the soft hands.
I guess I want to see anyone in the back who wants to come on and has any memories about tennis before we go to our next topic. Is it Big Core or Matthew in the back, or anybody wants to talk a little about Big Core and Matthew? All right, tell Big Core happy birthday to you, belated.
I went to one conversation. This is tennis. This is not my sport. I must admit.
It's not a sport.
Djokovic, Federer. That's about it.
Okay.
We'll let the seasoned veteran Big Core talk about them. We'll come back to you, Matt. We'll talk about the football and baseball.
Yeah. I went to when I was working for the company in the early I guess it was 71. I went I was actually living in New York City, but we went out to Queens, and the guy that I went with was a friend of my best friend's. I just knew him casually, but he played tennis at Columbia. This guy's name was Gary. He played tennis at Columbia, and he was friends. He used to volley with friends. He was friends with an Israeli, and his name was Shlomo Glickstein. I'll always remember that name.
Yeah, sure.
Shlomo Glickstein. Yeah. And so, here I am with this guy Gary, who I barely know, and we're schlepping out on the 7 train, going out to and I said. And I said, and Gary says to me, now you got to dress up a little bit, Core, because this is the U.S. Open. You just can't. And I had no sense of the etiquette of the thing. I don't know if you could show up in a muscle shirt. I had no idea what you could do. So I went out and actually bought a pair of, Izod shorts and a shirt, and a pink shirt, no less. The only pink shirt I've ever owned. And we went out there, and before the match, Gary introduces me to this guy Shlomo Glickstein, and he's not a very big guy. You know, he's not a very big guy, and he had the unfortunate situation to draw Ivan Lendl in his first match. And I don't know who he was either. And he dispatched him in straight sets. He just was like boom, 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 boom. And Gary's rooting for his pal Shlomo because he plays with him. And I'm looking like, man, this guy sucks, man. This guy Lendl's really good. We need to know him.
Yeah.
That's who we need to know because he's going to win
that's
this.
His bad luck.
Yes. That was my one and only experience at the U.S. Open. But you're right, Gil. There was a lot of famous people there at the time. I can remember Louis Armstrong was there. Literally, he was still alive, and he was there. Wow. And they had and he played. And I was like, what the heck? I mean, I had no idea what I was getting into. None. I didn't know anything about it.
I don't know what the connection is because the stadium is Louis Armstrong Stadium, the original stadium in Flushing, where they play now, is Louis Armstrong. I never really thought about what they even connect. Somebody probably knows. It's probably an obvious answer. But before Arthur Ashe Stadium, there was the Louis Armstrong Stadium, which I think they still use. I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
It's the other smaller stadium. But I never knew the connection other than was he just a fan? Was he just a regular? Did he I don't know
I mean, he sang and he played. I mean, so he was something must have been somebody somewhere must have known him or something. But it's the one and only time I've ever been to that event. I'll never forget it. I mean, meeting this guy Glickstein, he seemed like a nice fellow, hail fellow.
I think he had a decent career for himself, Shlomo. So it is what I mean. He might not have had much.
He got smoked by Lendl. I can tell you, he got smoked by Lendl. Yeah. He's just like,
a lot of people
6'1", 6'2", 6 zip. He was gone. Yeah. I turned to Gary and I said, "We need to know this guy."
Who was like in the mid '70s, early '80s? Who was one guy that you like to watch in tennis? Women or men, which is
I like McEnroe. I like McEnroe, and I like Chrissy Evert. I thought that after as a result of this exposure, I kind of got a little more hip to it, and then I got moved out. My company moved me out to the West Coast, and I really got into it. I never played tennis, played. I kind of went around with it, but I got a little more into it out in the West Coast, and so I follow it. So I do follow it, all the majors. And so I watched this. I watched the U.S. Open, and it's, the last time a United States man won was Roddick, and that's in 2003. So that's 21 years ago. And the last time, in fact, I watched it on Sports Center tonight. They had the anniversary of Pete Sampras beating Andre Agassi. That's the last time two Americans went at it head-to-head in the U.S. Open. And that was the anniversary. And Sampras was 19 years old.
And what year was that?
I was like 94, something like that, 95, something like that.
My brother-in-law Rick just said that Louis Armstrong lived about a half-mile away from Flushing, across from LaGuardia.
Oh,
I don't know if that gets you a stadium named after you.
But
if so, it can be named after Rick because he lives there.
That's my take on tennis, but I do like it. I really enjoy it. I just wish American men would. You can tell when McEnroe's doing the commentary, he wanted Fritz to win. He wanted any American to win. At that point,
they were all in. I mean,
they were all in. This guy.
They said it. I mean, he wasn't hiding it. I mean, he said they love the idea. And just like what I was saying is like you have to. When there's no American, it's not as interesting. It's unless it's Federer.
You saw in your opening your opening segment there. You showed Connors in that one, and there was a banner back there, and it said United States National Championship. That's how they referred to it. That's what they referred to it as, is the U.S. Open, United States National Championship. And back then, we had a lot of Americans that were.
Dave, because it came to my mind that I would watch in the finals, Borg and McEnroe and all that. And I always remember it was like, I think Pat Summerall used to do the tennis,
Oh, he did.
I remember Pat Summerall being a really good tennis commentator. He had like a very great voice. And I was just thinking that like CBS would do it and Pat Summerall would do it. And it was really, I remember those like twilight games, twilight matches. And And the U.S. Open always had a big roar, and it was always an event. And like you said, I mean, we were next to Tony Bennett. I said, my dad's a big fan. He gave us an order. He was very nice. He was with a girl that would look like about 40 years younger, but that's okay.
Yeah.
The girl that was about, I don't know, but I say one thing. I only met him once. He was very cordial at the US.
Nice.
Right.
That's very nice.
Yeah, I don't know. But Big Core, we got to go into a great football sequence that we have with the.
Let's keep Big Core, keep him handy here.
I also want to give you. I also want to give you an Ed Kranepool moment too. Just want to give you that too.
Good.
Oh, you want to do it now?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We talked about that already. So yeah.
This was back in the day when I was living in New York, and my buddy and I, not the guy that got me the tickets, but my best buddy. He also went to Columbia. We were both Pittsburgh Pirate fans, and we got tickets for a matinee game out of Shea Stadium. I don't know where we got them, but we ended up going out there. 71, so it was the year the Pirates won the World Series. But I saw it without a doubt one of the best pitching matchups in my entire life. It was Tom Seaver versus Steve Blass, and they were taking it into the top of the ninth inning, and the Mets were up 1-0. And the top of the ninth, Clemente gets on. Stargell takes him deep. It's 2-1. Pirates are ahead 2-1. We bring in, I think, Dave Justy to try to close the game out. And they get a man on. We get Justy gets somebody out. Then the next guy gets a ground ball. It kind of squeaks through. So now it's 1st and 3rd, and there's one out. Justy strikes the next guy up. Kranepool is up, and he hits a rocket to right center field. And my man Clemente ended the game. Chased it down like this. And me and my buddy, everybody said they have this holding like this. Everybody thinks it's going this way. And Clemente yanked it down. And I just looked at my man Andy and I said, that's a great ball game.
Right. I think I've said this before about Big Core. He's got a story. You name a guy, we'll pull it up. And then Kranepool's not obscure, but he's not a superstar either.
Oh, no. Well, you know,
I've called you I think I called you the Bert Sugar of Flashback Sports. I think if you're under 50 or 60, you have no idea what that means. But
I know who that Bert Sugar is.
I know you know who it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, Kranepool, he hit that home run, but in that '69 World Series, a former Pirate was the MVP, and that was Don Clendenin.
Don Clendenin,
that's right. Who I saw play for the Pirates.
First 3 home runs, right? 3 home runs.
Oh yeah. He's a home run or bust. You know, it was a home run.
Yeah,
or bust.
No, that's kind of. He had a nice little run for a few weeks.
Really good fielder too. Really good fielding first.
Very good fielder. Hey, let's bring on John and Matthew. We're going to talk about. You can stay on Matt because you're more than welcome to stay on or not.
Yeah, but great stay on everybody. Bring them all on. So
I'm going to talk Jets and Giants.
Oh yeah.
All right, guys.
Yeah, those guys can talk. They're in pain.
So Matthew and John. We're looking at what 12 wins between the Jets and Giants.
No, I mean this is a complete week 1 overreaction. The Jets lost this game. Now look, it would have been great to win this game. RELAX, relax. Aaron Rodgers says it himself. Relax. He actually looked. And I'll go through the game. Defense was abysmal. I think that the defense has a lot to work on, and I think this was a wake-up call. People, you know, the defensive line is not as deep as last year. They lost guys like John Franklin Myers. They lost guys like Bryce Huff. It's not as deep, but it could still be better. I mean, this guy that backed up for McCaffrey looked like, I mean, friggin', he looked like prime Marshawn Lynch out there. The Jets made him look like. It was really embarrassing.
What's the story with this defensive lineman that hasn't played yet?
Hassan Reddick, I mean, he's just a loser at this point. I don't know what he's gaining by continuing to sit out.
He made some money last night.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, he made some money, but he's still not going to get him. The Jets are not going to give him an extension. Maybe he gained a little bit with his bonus there, but they're not going to give him a big extension. I mean, the guy only has 1 year left. He can still get hurt. Maybe he's not in game shape. It's an ugly situation. I think both sides are a little bit at fault. I think the Jets more at fault for making the move. I think they should have just kept Bryce Huff in the first place, but it is what it is. I think.
How many wins for the Jets? 6 or 7?
I'm going with 11 still. I think the schedule is very easy. Aaron Rodgers.
Wow.
It's one freaking game. You guys are claiming the season. This guy, Aaron, he looks great. His arm is still there, guys. I don't care what you say. Maybe mobility. He's 70% of what he was. His arm is still great. A little rust, a couple drops. I think he looked tremendous. I think he looked better than I thought he was. For not having played a game in 500 days, I think he looked tremendous. I think that's something to build on.
That was the only positive come out of the game. The defense was atrocious. The offensive line protected
was great.
decently, but not on that's from a running game standpoint. They did
Yeah.
nothing to create any holes. My biggest beef, and I'm going to let you finish, John and Matthew, get on with the Jets, is Hackett. I watch other teams. I watch the design plays. I watch, the misdirection, how they're creating time for quarterbacks to roll. This guy continues to do nothing. Just if you watch every single play of the Jets, what do they do to create, either give him time or create misdirections or run off tackle, whatever it is? They just seem to do nothing. There's never a play you say with the Jets say, that was very creative, or what a great play design that was. I'm not saying it never happens, but it's so infrequent. I can't think of a single play last night they had where you'd say, okay, that was a very clever play design, really disguised that well. Whatever it is, it's like when you're playing in the street. Okay, everybody go out. That's our play. Everybody just go out. I'll find. That's what the Jets seem to do. Hackett has been given this gift by Aaron Rodgers. For some reason, he likes him. Maybe because Hackett just leaves Aaron Rodgers alone, lets him call all the audibles he wants at the line. But
yeah,
you got to have some play design. That's not going to change. That's my biggest takeaway with last night. I agree with you about the defense. They will get better. Niners are a really good team. At least they better be a really good team, or else we've been exposed. But they're a really good team.
They're a good team.
They'll presumably get really good, get on defense. I agree with you about 1,000%. I like what I saw at Rodgers last night, because to do what he did last night after 2 years of inactivity is pretty impressive.
I mean, yeah,
So,
that third drive. When was the last time you seen a drive like that? I was just it was awesome. I've never seen a drive like that. It was unbelievable. I mean, 3 third-down conversions. The Jets last year in a touchdown drive, they didn't convert more than 2 third downs in touchdown drive last year. They converted 3 on that drive.
It's amazing.
So that just goes to show. I mean, he was unbelievable that drive. I think the defense, the run defenses, that was, abysmal, really bad.
Every aspect.
Just the packages that they had on defense, not good strategy. Robert Saleh was completely outclassed by a great coach in Shanahan.
Yeah.
Well,
That's all they were playing. Guys are just settling underneath it, wide open, run across the middle.
Dave, I would be looking at all the coaches that are available next year. I'd be looking at that guy in Tennessee. I'd be getting all feelers out. I you know what, honestly, I know it's crazy, but if they start 0-4, I would fire Saleh after 4.
They're not going to start 0-4. They are not going to start 0-4. Stop with this loser talk. They haven't made the playoffs in 13 years, and you're already going 0-4. Enough of this. If you want to go, walk through the door, be a loser. Walk through the door and be a loser right now, and jump off the bandwagon. I'm sick and tired of talking. Come on, I understand it's hot. If you want to be a loser, be a loser. Enough of this talk. I'm sick and tired of it.
I will say the coaching it had to be an F yesterday. I mean, Saleh's supposed to be defensive coach.
No, it is. It was.
The tackling was not there on defense, and the packages, I agree, were not there. And Hassan Reddick doesn't fix that, because Hassan Reddick sells out for the pass rush. I mean, this is not a
oh yeah, but the pass rush wasn't there though. Pass rush wasn't there at all. That would help.
And I agree with that. And Will McDonald didn't step up their first round pick. But on offense, on the coaching, I will say, I mean, it must be 60% of the plays where Aaron Rodgers is audibling at the line. I mean, so the question is Rodgers allowed to do this? Or are the play calls that he's receiving so bad and so basic that Rodgers has to do this? And even when he is audible into these plays, he audibled the first play of the year. He audibled, and it's the same thing. The playbook yesterday, including the audibles, was 3 plays. It was the pitch on first down. It must have been a pitch every single first down. It felt like it was a pitch on first down. Second down, if they gained yards, it was another run. If they didn't gain yards or they lost yards, it was a short stick, and then third down was a longer throw. So
you got to remember, even if he's audibling to what? Right. Yes, he controls. He's an audible 60%, whatever the number is going to be. But he's only going to be audibling to another play that they've designed, which are just terrible. There's just nothing we've seen it now for years.
Well, but you know what's absurd?
This is common things that you got audible to. Yeah,
I agree with that. Audibling on the first play of the year is probably not a common thing. I mean, that's the one play you get to script. You script the opening drive. You know what the 49ers are going to throw at you the first game of the year. You script that opening drive. Every team does. And I think all of the plays on the first drive, was watching very closely. I think all of them were audible.
Yeah, it's
they forget about Rodgers and stuff. They run on you the whole second period. They get the ball in the third period. They keep it. Where's the adjustments? Put 10 guys up on the bottom. Do something because Salah's supposed to be a defensive whiz. Yet I don't see any adjustments. Look like they weren't prepared. I mean, I am so tired of him. I would fire him tomorrow. I had enough of him. I would hire Tim Waltz, the guy that's a vice president.
Well, I mean,
you know what?
Got my vote.
I would
know
take
that.
it. That's how I'm so sick of Salah and Douglas and this bull and all. We talk about receipts. We talk about all gas. No, where's the receipts? Where's my receipts? I should be getting a refund for my ticket.
Dad, they're 0-1. Relax a little bit. Settle down, and relax. They're playing the Tennessee Titans next week. They're going to win. They're going to win the game. Relax a little bit. Settle down.
We're going to talk. You know what? Gil, we're going to come back. We're going to come back in 40 years, wherever our afterlife is. We're going to come back.
Hey, Matthew,
it'll be 90 years. We're going to talk to John. And we're going to say, John's going to be 90. It's going to be 90 years since it just won.
You know what, Dave?
He's going to be losing his mind after the first quarter.
I'm going to share a story because I'm going to share a real life story that I experienced today. Kid was walking down the quad on my campus with a Jets jersey, and I see these kids laughing. Oh, that kid's a Jets fan. They're laughing at him. I mean, when is this ever going to end? When is it going to end? You know what? And I sunk it in my head. It's not. That's not a funny meme. I've seen it 100 times.
That's a very funny meme. What are you talking about?
I've seen it 100 times, Dave. I'm sick and tired of this. I put it to the back of my head. I remembered it. When they win the Super Bowl,
we're like, he's sick and tired of it. We're numb. We're just numb at this point because we're 50 years in on this stuff.
I'm going to tell you guys, tomorrow I'm going to an event and Namath's going to be there. So I'm going to have to tell him the curse is because of you. I got to figure out where the curse is. And
the curse of who? Who's going to be there?
The curse is because of him. You're going to get freaking escorted out there. That's a little crazy.
About the curse with them. And, I forget about we've got very heated with the Jets. Let's see how they do next week with Tennessee. Matthew, let's talk about the Giants. What do you think with David? Tell us what's going on with the Giants. Daniel Jones, what do you think about the Giants? Let's move a little bit.
So, does it get any worse? It can get worse, right?
There's a fundamental problem here. I don't even know how to explain it. I think it's the quarterback because having Daniel Jones at quarterback has to be I think it's just so limiting as to what the offense can do. I'm watching the first drive, and I'm watching 3rd and 2 empty backfield. What type of threat? I thought it was the play calling. 3rd and 2 empty backfield. There's no it's not convincing that they might run the ball. And I think the problem is you're working with Daniel Jones on that 3rd and 2. They had an empty backfield because they did a QB draw because they didn't trust him to throw the ball out of an empty backfield. Mm-hmm. So that play just makes no sense because either you put a running back there as a running threat and you have the running back kind of run the ball up the middle because the team is stacking the box 3rd and 2. They on your 50-yard line, they're stacking the box. So they see empty backfield. It's not like now they have 5 defensive linemen out there that are quickly swapping out to be cornerbacks. They still have that big set in there. So there's no play action. The play calling doesn't make any sense, but I think it's Daniel Jones because you can't trust him in that spot to step up and make a throw. His eyes are everywhere. The decision-making is out of whack. When the decision-making is best, honestly, he completes his best throws when he looks at the check down immediately. And that's extremely limiting as it is. All the passes he completes are to the check down. He is terrible at reading the defense. He throws into double coverage. Even when he has to force the ball, he forces it to into triple coverage. I understand the 4th down interception. You have to force it on 4th down. But the first one, he didn't get the ball out quick enough. And besides that, you have 3 tight ends stacked and then a receiver behind him. Every single person watching the game in the building knows that's a wide receiver screen. And so the guy just picks off the play and he didn't get the ball out quick enough. And everyone knows it's a wide receiver screen. So if you run that play, you have to get the ball out immediately. And so it's a combination, I think, of play calling, which I think is limited by the ability of Daniel Jones, which is really low.
That means that's experiments over then. And it's on province when you start all over in the NFL.
I just wanted to comment on those throwback Giant uniforms. I kind of thought when I first looked at them, they looked like a Montreal Canadiens uniforms. I thought at any minute Ken Dryden was going to come out and kick a field goal. I said, "What the heck is this all about?" And there's a lady, a friend of mine. She lived down here, and she's a huge Giant fan. She said the first thing she thought about was those interstate signs, like I-95. They look like that.
I think they I think they also used the same playbook from 1926 as well. well.
I
So that
think
was probably the issue. So.
You weren't allowed to throw a forward pass too far.
Exactly.
It was pretty weak.
Yeah.
Their defense is
So
not
your
scary.
Steelers are off to a good start, though. They
Oh,
got,
thank you. Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. Two things I will say about them. Just my observation is I think they're going to have a really rock'em sock'em defense. They're going to have one of the top 5 in the NFL. They picked up a linebacker from the Baltimore Ravens. His name is Patrick Queen in the middle, and he's as good as I've seen in the middle that the Steelers have had. Of course, they've got Watt, and they've got a pretty good down. And they also picked up another defensive back to go with Fitzpatrick. So their backside defense is going to be pretty good. They got a couple of young guys on the offensive line. They're going to try to run the ball, and I will say I saw one play, and I'm not a big Fields fan or not an anti-Fields fan, or what am I going to say, or Russell Wilson. Wilson's kind of sitting on the sideline, but I watched Wilson make a play, and the commentator, Olsen, said there are probably 3 guys in the NFL that could make this play. And I'll just real quick scheme it for you. The whole flow of the play is to the left. So Fields, and you got to be real quick on your feet and run, you get to the left. So the whole flow of the play rolls to the left. The defense responds accordingly. Falcon defense. Pickens is on the right side. He runs as though he's going to run a drag pattern across the middle of the field. He plants his left foot and bolts to the right. So he's outside the numbers this way, and he's like 35, 40 yards down to the right side. Fields plants his foot and throws a laser beam. I mean, an absolute laser beam to Pickens, and it's like a 42-yard completion. Olsen said, and I agreed with him, that in the NFL right now, the whole schematic of that play, there might be 3 guys that could make that throw. Trevor Lawrence, I know he can make it because he was like John Elway. He can make that throw. And Fields, obviously, because he threw the ball. He said there's and maybe Joe Burrow, but he's been limited because of his rollout ability. It was wonderful to watch from my perspective.
Can I ask a follow-up on that?
Yeah, sure.
Is Russell Wilson going to – I mean, I'm assuming they named him the starter. Is that going to fundamentally change the offense if Russell Wilson comes back and he's the starter?
I don't – well, I mean, I don't think Wilson can run as much as he used to run. So I think Fields gives him that dynamic because he picked up 56 or 57 yards running the ball too for the Steelers. So that was nice to see. But the negative was they had 6 scoring opportunities and they came away with 6 field goals. They got to score at least 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, well, that's when you don't.
Score should have been 30 points or more.
And that's when you don't have a lot of confidence in your quarterback. That's the difference between field goals and touchdowns. Because they don't want to take chances that you can throw picks in the end zone.
Yeah, see, they would take a chance with Russell Wilson. I think they would take a chance with him. But they just know they can win some of those plays.
Yeah, with their defense, they know that they can win. They don't have some teams have to score touchdowns.
And the other thing I was going to comment on that was a little bit analogous to Rodgers that I saw in the Atlanta Steeler game is Cousins took and he had a similar injury to Rodgers. He tore his Achilles heel. Cousins did not take one snap from under center. Now Rodgers did, which was good to see. Cousins didn't. He stood up right back. He didn't turn his back to the defense. Everything was pretty much schemed out. So if you were Russian, you knew there's Rodgers, go get him. I mean, there's Cousins, go get him. He ain't going anywhere. The only thing I noticed about Rodgers is, while he did take snaps from under the center, I just didn't think. I mean, and I agree with John. He can still spin the ball. He can still spin it very well, very well. But I'm not so sure he still has that escapability situation that he had going for him, or at least
probably not.
Probably not.
You can't not lose. You have to lose it at 40 years old. There's no way.
Yeah, that's it. 40 and the injury, because it's hard. You look at you hurt your Achilles, and it's in the back. I mean, look what happened to Kevin Durant. He hurts his, he hurt, boom, bang, and he's done.
Well, Russell Wilson.
The
The point made about Russell Wilson was exactly Russell Wilson became a pedestrian quarterback when he stopped running because he was such a great runner. Not only that, a smart runner. He didn't run. He ran at the key times, and he was a threat to throw the ball off the run. Now he just has lost that step.
Yes,
he's really just now, really just become an average, maybe even below average quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah,
but maybe average at quarterback. But when he was really good, he was a threat to run. He was such a smart runner, picked his spot.
Yeah,
he wasn't a guy who was looking to run first. But
we had about 15. If you saw that graphic on the Thursday night game when Jackson he passed. I think Russell Wilson in his third now in all-time rushing yards. Vic, and then there's Cam Newton, and then there's Jackson, and there's I didn't know Russell Wilson ran for almost 5,700 yards. That's a lot of yards.
Hey,
that's a lot of yards.
We got about 15 minutes left. We should jump on some baseball instead of this depressing football talk.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about the Yankee postseason. We got the Orioles. Orioles are going to be September 24th, 25th, 26th, and then you have the Mets Braves 20, and the Mets have won 9 out of 10. The Mets are hot. The Yankees, they no more Clay Holmes. It only took Boone 135 games to realize 11 blown games that Holmes is not the closer. But you know what? I'm going to tell you right now, like I've told my son and my nephew, I think if the Yankees play Houston, they're going to lose again. I really do, because Houston has great bullpen. I think Houston knows how to win. I said Houston's not afraid of him, and they got this. Hey, they got a great bullpen, and the Yankees. I don't know. Hey, listen, I'll be more to say that I hope that the Yankees will win the division and get in there and stuff. But let's see what Matthew and John say about that, about the Yankees and the Mets, and you, Dave. What do you think about that?
Look, I mean, I think the thing is they have no closer. That's I think the key thing. I mean, Holmes, you can do the closer by committee. It's only going to take you so far because ultimately you got to lean on a guy, and in the playoffs they're going to have to. You know, if Weaver pitches well game 1, he's going to pitch game 2, but he's bound to eventually. He's not a. I mean, these are all like 7th inning guys, and I think the problem. I mean, they're all okay, and I think the rotation's okay. I think the problem lies in the lineup. I mean, currently leadoff, you have the worst defensive second baseman in baseball. He's also not hitting great. He's hitting in the 600s OPS, hitting 250. Then you have Soto Judge, undeniable, right? Greatness. Wells has been pretty good for a catcher, but I think you'd be, if he was the 7 hitter or the 6 hitter, you'd be in a much better spot. The fact that he's the 4 hitter and he's been good there, no doubt about it, is a little problematic. Stanton is streaky. You don't know what you're going to get in the playoffs, but historically he's been good in the playoffs. Jazz Chisholm has been a bit of a disaster at third recently, at least. But I think he's hit the ball. He can run. I'd say he's a plus. You don't know what you're getting from left field. Jason Dominguez, Alex Verdugo, you really don't know what you're getting. Could be 0, could be something. Rizzo's old. He's washed up. He's hitting 218 this year. He's been injured. I don't think you're going to get much from him. And Volpe's basically now his stats are akin to last year. And last year he had a very poor offensive season. So a lot of the guys in the lineup to me, it's a very average lineup, and it's not going to do well. It's overpowering great pitching.
I don't know if Dave agrees with me or not, but this is the year they had Soto and Judge, and I'm going to fault Cashman or Howe, whatever it is. They had to get pitching help at the trade deadline. 3 or 4 guys got picked up by LA and the Ravens, and the Yankees had to be all in. Now, I know I'm not going to say that everything George did was great, because George had a lot of mistakes. George was almost kicked out of baseball. But one thing about George, when he went to the trade deadline, he went for it. When he got Cecil Fielder, when he got David Justice, when he picked up David Cohn, he went for it. And, if he had to give up prospects, he would say we could get other prospects. You know what I mean? So the bottom line is, Hal, as much as he doesn't want to be like George, is he just happy to make money and to be profitable and have good ratings on Yes? But when you have Judge and you have only Soto for a year, I feel he should have went in and picked up a couple players at the deadline. I'm sorry. He gets an F for what he did at the trade deadline. Just let me know what you guys think about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think Jack Flaherty would have been a great addition. I know that starting pitching Matthew said it isn't, wasn't an issue. It isn't an issue right now. I think it still could be. I mean, Garrett Cole's looked solid recently. Rodon, I'm still not convinced on. He's had an okay year. Can you really trust him in the playoffs? I think he has the potential to get rocked in the playoffs, to be honest with you.
Agreed.
Don't like Stroman. I think Stroman he's going to get – if he pitches well, he's giving up a lot of hard contact, and you need great defense. Yankees really don't have great infield defense in the play, and that's a key thing in the playoffs. I don't really trust him. I like Heel. I think Heel's solid, but in the playoffs, I mean, the control issue concerns you, especially pitching in the cold. There's some control issues concern that we have that I have with Heel. The rotation, look, on paper it's solid, but I think Jack Flaherty could have been a great addition. He's having a Cy Young type season. Of course, the Dodgers got him right. I mean, any surprise, any shocker there?
And
No.
Kopech.
And Michael Kopech, that could have been an addition as well. So I just think the bullpen was the big thing. They got this guy Mark Leiter Jr. and they sold you that this guy is a big strikeout guy, big swing and miss guy. I haven't seen any of it. I don't know what the scouts saw in this guy. Just looked right now, he just gave up another home run. This guy's trash, and they sold you this guy has a 30% strikeout percentage. And a great splitter. This a splitter that I really haven't seen any good stuff from this guy Leiter. I think that was a horrible addition. Jazz was a solid addition to the lineup. I think he provides pretty good production from the 6th spot. Defense is a little bit of a concern, but they really don't have a spot to put him in the outfield, so that they're kind of forced to put him at third base because DJ stinks so much. So I mean, look, the team has some. I think the bullpen's going to kill them in the end of the playoffs. I really do believe so. They don't have a swing in this guy in the bullpen. They really don't, and it's going to kill them. I don't think they're really going to. I agree with my dad. I think the Astros are their kryptonite. And if they do end up facing them, they're leading the division right now by 4.5 games. Looks like they're on their way to another division title. If they face them again in the ALCS, I don't think they're going to conquer them, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think the one thing with the Yankees that I agree about the bullpen, that they need to get power arms. We talked about this before the trade deadline on the show. They needed to get power arms, strikeout arms. They needed to get a potential guy that could replace Holmes because he was failing then. There's something about that 9th inning with him because his stuff looks electric. I don't know why he doesn't get more strike. I think he relies way too much on the slider. And when you have a guy if you have a closer or any really relief pitcher in general who relies on guys chasing outside the strike zone, you can't win. You can't win like that. You have to be able to get outs in the strike zone. And he can do that. He absolutely can do that. He can pitch in the strike zone, but refuses to do it. He can go 0-2, and now he's going to flirt with the a foot outside to try to get somebody to chase the slider, and it's not going to happen. So pitching to avoid contact, and you can't do that if you want to be a closer. He's got that power sinker that, in my opinion, needs to use more often versus the slider. He needs to put the slider away against lefties. But the one thing that I think the Yankees may get a little lucky on, one, I don't think anybody's that good. Every team is flawed. There's nobody that has, I think, really top to bottom pitching between starting and really. I don't think anybody really better than the Yankees. I think they're in the same spot. Might have a better closer, but might have not as good as starters. I think Yankees are getting healthy right now at the right time. I think guys like Ian Hamilton become important. Clearly, Clark Schmidt, we know and mentioned, really important because for 2 reasons. Because this guy was a dominant starter when he was healthy this year. Looked good in his first outing back. He's pitching to like a 2.3 ERA. So if you have Cole, Heel, Rodon, and Schmidt as your 4 starters, that's pretty solid. It goes up against anybody else in baseball. That also gives you the opportunity to put Cortez in the bullpen, which they needed lefty help. Mm-hmm. They didn't have anybody. They got 2 lefties in the bullpen now I never heard of 2 months ago. And so Cortez going to the bullpen gives them a little punch. Good matchup. Can obviously get lefties and righties out. Ian Hamilton's a little bit of a sleeper to me. I like his makeup. I like Luke Weaver's makeup, but you're right. None of them have lights out stuff. So I think they're getting healthy at the right time if they still healthy. And the key to their lineup, to me, is Stan. It's always Stan because they've been really vulnerable against lefties this year. Stanton hasn't really hit lefties this year. He's actually hit righties better, but he can kind of neutralize the lefties if he's going well because he can carry a team. And the other thing that I think that I hope will happen is, Verdugo has not been good, and he's certainly not good. He has no power against lefties. He'll occasionally spray one to the left against a lefty, but I'm hoping that Dominguez can be a full-time player, and whether it's replacing Verdugo, which is the likely scenario, I think it's going to happen, especially when Stanton's playing. There's enough there that in every series matchup, with the possible exception of Houston, because we're going to assume that they're going to lose to, we're going to have that psyche. But there's no one they can't beat in the American League. I think Dodgers are the best team in baseball because they're getting healthy at the right team. But in the American League, there's no one the Yankees can't beat. The question is, will they hit and will they get enough pitching? They haven't hit in the last few years.
Dave, like we said baseball's become like the NCAA tournament, right? There's no dominant teams. If you get in, last year Arizona was a wild card. They got in. They got the World Series. 1 year Phillies were a wild card. You get to the World Series. So it's not like it used to be. But the Yankees got to look for next year. If they got to sign Soto, that means Verdugo's got to go and Torres has got to go, and they got to bring in those guys. That's 25.
I think those guys are gone. I mean, I don't think. Yeah, Torres is definitely gone. You know, Verdugo might get a 1 year deal for somebody, but this is who Verdugo is. He's a guy I like the signing because I like his game, but he's just settled into. There's a few guys that just have some reason. I don't know why. I think I just like the Red Sox players. I overvalue them because when you go back to Ellsbury and Benintendi and Verdugo, whenever I saw these guys play, they seemed to play well. Maybe it was just the Yankees getting up for the Yankees, and then when they leave Boston, they're terrible. Or at least mediocre at best.
Yeah, the only guy that was good on the Yankees was Johnny Damon. He was
and even him in a role position. But even Damon was, certainly helped us in 2009. But Verdugo, he is what he is. I mean, he's past he's old enough now. You're not waiting for his prime. So to me, he's a guy who's going to get a 1 or 2 year deal from somebody next year. Probably not the Yankees because they have a lot of depth in the farm system.
So you think that Yankees now? I wanted to ask John and Matthew the playoff thing. If you win the division and you're number 1 seed, do you get a explain to us old times? I know the last 2 rounds are 4-7. How does it work if you say win the American League and you're the number 1 seed? How does it work when it comes?
It doesn't matter. Every division winner goes on to the DS, and then you have the
only the top two. The top 2 records.
Top 2, okay.
Get a bye.
Okay, so
DS.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So if the playoffs ended today, the Yankees would play the winner of Baltimore against Minnesota, I believe.
Minnesota, right?
Or Baltimore, whoever and then Cleveland would play the winner of.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
they could face anybody.
It's within 1 game right now. It's very close. I think it's gonna come down to.
Yeah, they could play anybody. So let's just
I would love to face Minnesota. I will say.
Hey,
listen.
The Yankees always want to play Minnesota.
I know, but you know what? I told Dave we always wanted to play the Red Sox. We always wanted to play the Royals. Eventually, probability. I mean, we've beaten them so many times that in one of these series they're going to get a break and win. I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's how I feel with probability. I mean, everyone says you want the matchup, Minnesota. I look at it this way: they got to beat what they got to beat, and I'm tired. They got to step it up and beat Houston this year. Enough. How many times are they going to beat? And listen, they lose to Houston this year. I want Boone out, Cashman out. I want them all out. If they don't make it to the World Series this year, I want big changes.
Agreed.
Hal doesn't like it. You know what? If Hal doesn't like it, let his sister take over the team.
No, but it's a crapshoot. The playoffs are a crapshoot. Playoffs are a crapshoot, so that's why they're not going to fire them, right? It's a crapshoot, so that's going to be their argument.
How many years is this guy going to be a manager in this that we can't get to the World Series? I mean, I just don't understand. It's the same stuff every year. They get in the playoffs, it's a crapshoot. When are they going to win the crapshoot? Once in a while, you're spending this much money. You got to be. I'm sorry, listen. I don't want to hear this stuff about the players. I might hear like Michael Kay. Listen, you're the Yankees. You got to try to get to the World Series. You don't win a pennant. I feel like the season's a failure. I remember 1980. I was a kid.
I just think
they lost to.
I think it's unrealistic.
I'm tell you something. They lost to Kansas City, and Reggie Jackson said, "What a wasted season." I heard Jeter say in Old Timers Day, if you don't win the whole thing, even as great, they got to get to the World Series. I'm sorry.
Judge says that.
But I will say
this. I think the Yankees' goal of winning World Series every year, I think that's outdated right now. I don't think that's their motto. They should admit it. They should admit it, though. That's not their motto. I think it's unrealistic.
I think they do try to win the World Series every year. I don't think there's anything wrong.
But it's not World Series or bust, though. It's definitely not World Series.
In the last.
Excuse me, guys. I'd love to continue this, but the producers know we're out of time. Listen, let's hope we'll have our next show. We'll have a playoff preview. Thank you, Big Core. Great stories about Clemente's catch. And good night, everyone. And
thank you.
Enjoy the fall weather. We'll look forward to the next episode of Flashback Sports. Have a good night.